What if the greatest obstacle between you and true abundance isn't your income, your career, or even the economy? What if Jesus taught that the real prison is an invisible division happening inside your own heart? For centuries, millions have read his words about wealth and fear without realizing they point toward a much deeper spiritual conflict. Today we'll return to the original Aramaic perspective to explore how Jesus challenged the illusion of separation and why that teaching remains astonishingly relevant today. Stay until the end, because understanding this ancient wisdom may completely change the way you see both money and fear. When people think about the teachings of Jesus concerning wealth, they often remember isolated verses about money, possessions, or generosity. Some conclude that he rejected material prosperity altogether. Others believe his message was simply about giving more to those in need. Yet when we step back and examine the broader picture presented throughout the Gospels, a far deeper pattern begins to emerge. Again and again, Jesus addressed the condition of the human heart before speaking about material circumstances. Fear, anxiety, greed, trust, generosity, and faith were never isolated subjects. They formed a single spiritual landscape. The visible actions of a person reflected an invisible condition within. This becomes especially meaningful when we remember that Jesus taught in Aramaic. Like many ancient Semitic languages, Aramaic often communicates through images, relationships, and living experiences rather than abstract definitions alone. A word frequently carries emotional and spiritual dimensions that invite reflection instead of quick conclusions. One recurring theme throughout his ministry is the contrast between fear and trust. Consider his words in Matthew 6, where he encourages his listeners not to become consumed by worry over food, clothing, or tomorrow. He does not deny that these concerns are real. Instead, he gently reveals that constant anxiety can become a prison that prevents people from recognizing God's continual provision. Many contemplative readers see this not merely as practical advice, but as a description of an inner duality. Part of the heart longs to trust, while another part clings to fear. One side believes abundance begins with God's faithfulness. The other believes survival depends entirely upon control. These two voices compete for our attention every single day. The remarkable insight is that Jesus never presented wealth itself as the enemy. Instead, he consistently challenged attachment, fear, and the illusion that security can be created apart from God. Wealth could become a blessing or a burden, depending upon the condition of the heart that possessed it. Perhaps this explains why two people can experience identical circumstances while living with completely different levels of peace. One remains generous and hopeful despite uncertainty. The other remains anxious despite having more than enough. The difference is not always found in what they own. It is often found in the invisible story they believe. And that invisible story leads directly to one of the most fascinating ideas preserved within the ancient Aramaic worldview, a perspective that invites us to see fear and abundance not as external realities first, but as conditions that begin within human consciousness. Stay with me, because in just a few moments we'll share a short contemplative prayer together that beautifully connects today's teaching with one of the most meaningful Aramaic words spoken by Jesus. Understanding its deeper significance first will make that prayer even more powerful. One of the greatest misunderstandings about the teachings of Jesus is the assumption that he divided life into separate compartments. Spiritual life belonged in one place. Daily work belonged in another. Money belonged somewhere else entirely. Yet his teaching rarely separated these realities. Instead, he consistently revealed how every outward choice begins with an inward condition. This becomes especially clear when he declares that no one can serve two masters. Although the passage is often interpreted as a warning about wealth alone, it also exposes something happening beneath the surface. The deeper conflict is not between God and money as physical objects. It is between trust and fear, surrender and control, freedom and attachment. From an Aramaic contemplative perspective, many interpreters suggest that the human heart naturally moves toward whatever it believes will provide ultimate security. When fear becomes the deepest motivation, possessions easily become substitutes for peace. But when trust becomes the foundation, even material blessings can be received without becoming chains. Notice that Jesus repeatedly invited his listeners to observe nature. Birds neither panic about tomorrow nor cling to unnecessary stores. Flowers do not compete for their beauty. These images were not encouraging irresponsibility. They were exposing the difference between wise stewardship and fear-driven living. Modern psychology has also shown that chronic fear narrows perception and influences. Although this differs from the spiritual language of the Gospels, it beautifully illustrates how our inner condition shapes our outward choices. We rarely act only from facts. We act from the stories we believe about reality. Perhaps this is the duality Jesus wanted his disciples to recognize. The battle is not first between poverty and wealth. It begins between fear and trust. Every financial decision, every act of generosity, and every anxious thought eventually grows from one of those two roots. The next chapter may reveal why one simple Aramaic word has helped countless believers return their attention from fear to the quiet confidence that Jesus continually demonstrated throughout his ministry. If this teaching already feels this deep, imagine having a full guide with deeper explanations of Jesus' true teachings in Aramaic. You'll find the link to the study guide in the comments. And the best is yet to come in the next chapters. You'll discover what could change everything for you. Abba, you know every fear I carry, even the ones I rarely admit. Teach me to release the illusion that my security depends only on what I can control. Fill my heart with the quiet confidence that comes from trusting your presence. Help me see abundance through your wisdom instead of through my fears. Let every decision I make today reflect faith, generosity, and peace. May my heart remain anchored in you above all else. Amen. One of the most remarkable patterns in the teachings of Jesus is that he never encouraged people to deny reality. He never told them that difficulties did not exist or that daily needs were unimportant. Instead, he consistently invited them to look beyond appearances and discover the deeper reality shaping every circumstance. Fear has a unique ability to divide the human heart. It tells us there is never enough, that tomorrow will always threaten today's peace, and that security must constantly be defended. Once those thoughts become deeply rooted, they begin influencing every decision we make. Generosity becomes difficult. Gratitude begins to disappear. Even success rarely feels sufficient. This is why many contemplative readers see fear as one of the greatest forms of inner duality. One part of the heart longs to trust God, while another keeps searching for certainty through control. The conflict is exhausting because both voices compete for our attention every day. Throughout the Gospels, Jesus continually redirected people away from fear and back toward trust. He did not promise a life without challenges. He promised a different foundation from which to face them. That foundation was never wealth itself, but confidence in God's faithful presence. Perhaps true abundance begins long before money ever enters the picture. It begins when fear no longer governs the heart. And when trust quietly takes its place, something extraordinary happens. We stop seeing life through the lens of scarcity and begin recognizing opportunities for gratitude, wisdom, and generosity that fear had hidden from us all along. If fear creates division within us, trust begins restoring what has been separated. This may be one of the deepest spiritual principles hidden throughout the teachings of Jesus. Every miracle, every parable, and every invitation to faith pointed people away from the illusion that they were abandoned and toward the reality of God's continual presence. Think about the moments when fear has influenced your own decisions. Perhaps you held back from helping someone because you worried there would not be enough left for you. Perhaps anxiety kept you from pursuing a calling or making a wise decision. Fear often disguises itself as caution, yet over time, it quietly becomes a prison. The invitation of Jesus is not reckless optimism. It is a life rooted in trust rather than panic. This is why his words remain so relevant today. Our world constantly encourages comparison, competition, and the pursuit of security through possessions alone. Yet the heart never finds lasting peace by accumulating more. Peace grows where trust becomes stronger than fear. One practical way to begin changing this inner pattern is through intentional pauses during the day. Whenever you notice fear taking over your thoughts, stop for a moment. Take one slow breath and quietly say, Abba. Let that single word remind you that your identity is not built upon temporary circumstances but upon the one who continually sustains your life. This small practice will not instantly remove every challenge. What it can do is gradually transform the place from which you respond to those challenges. Instead of reacting from anxiety, you begin responding from trust. Instead of seeing only scarcity, you begin noticing God's faithfulness in ways you may have overlooked before. Thank you for getting this far. If the awakening of consciousness is hitting you hard, it's a sign that you're ready to go deeper. The study guides are waiting for you in the pinned comments. Every transformation begins with a choice that is repeated until it becomes a new way of living. That is exactly why the teachings of Jesus were never intended to remain inspiring ideas. They were invitations to practice a different way of seeing the world. For the next 21 days, begin each morning before looking at your phone or thinking about your responsibilities. Sit quietly, take a slow breath, and gently speak the word Abba 7 times. Let each repetition remind you that your security begins with God, not with your circumstances. Then spend 1 minute in complete silence. Don't ask for anything yet. Simply become aware of God's presence. If anxious thoughts appear, don't fight them. Acknowledge them, let them pass, and return your attention to your breathing. Throughout the day, whenever fear begins to influence your decisions, pause for just a few seconds. Before reacting, quietly repeat Abba once. Ask yourself a simple question. Am I choosing from fear or from trust? That single moment of awareness can gradually reshape the direction of your life. Reflect on one blessing you received that day, no matter how small. Gratitude slowly weakens the illusion of scarcity and strengthens the awareness that God's provision often appears in ways we overlook. This transformation protocol is not about becoming wealthier overnight. It is about becoming freer. As fear loses its influence, generosity becomes easier, peace becomes deeper, and your relationship with both money and life begins to change from the inside out. We are just scratching the surface of this ancient power. Get ready, because in our next video, I will reveal even deeper Aramaic codes that unlock spiritual authority you've never imagined. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss this unfolding revelation. Today, we discovered that the deepest battle surrounding wealth is not found in a bank account, but within the human heart. Jesus consistently taught that fear and trust lead to 2 completely different ways of living. One keeps us trapped in the constant pursuit of security. The other allows us to experience freedom even in uncertain circumstances. His message was never that possessions are evil or that prosperity is wrong. Instead, he invited his followers to examine what truly governs their hearts. When fear becomes our master, abundance never feels enough. But when trust becomes our foundation, even ordinary moments reveal God's faithfulness. Perhaps that is the hidden duality Jesus wanted his disciples to recognize. Every day we choose which voice will guide us, the voice of fear or the voice of trust. That decision quietly shapes our relationships, our generosity, our peace, and even the way we see our future. As you continue this journey, remember that lasting transformation rarely happens all at once. It grows through small daily choices that gradually align the heart with God's presence instead of the world's anxiety. I am glad you are here. And I mean that deeply. The fact that you are seeking this knowledge tells me everything about where you are in your journey. Study guides with deeper teachings are waiting for you in the pinned comment below, with gratitude for walking this path together. Before you leave, if this message gave you a new perspective on fear and abundance, WRITE, the word trust, in the comments below. Your testimony may inspire someone who is still struggling between fear and faith. Thank you for sharing this journey with us. Until the next revelation, walk in peace, walk in freedom, and walk in the confidence that Abba is always with you.